He replied to her that it was true, and it just meant what it was, and nothing else. He counter-questioned her that if it was really the place to discuss something that important. She then offered him a cup of tea that he really liked. She asked him again if he had meant that as long as the milk essence was filled, anyone could operate it. He disagreed with her that it was obviously not that simple. She screamed at him that why he was messing up with her and ordered him to tell her clearly, or else she would kill him herself. He already said it clearly that with the milk essence added, it didn't need a soul master to operate it, but that doesn't mean an ordinary person could operate it. That person had to be at least somewhat trained to operate and handle the functions. It meant that normal soldiers who were not soul masters could operate Divine Missile Soul Guide. He guaranteed that she would be given the first priority in production. She liked the idea, but she needed some time for testing. He hoped that within 3 days the princess would give him a clear answer, but the time period seemed too short to her. He left and said that she doesn't need to send him off. Grandma suggested her not to stress herself out too much, and that she was still a young girl and she had already suffered so much. She told her that she was fine. She also stated that if it was really true what Yu Hao had said, then it was going to be a huge disaster that would come at the Empire, and they must act first. She left the testing of the Divine Missile Cannon Soul Guide on her grandma and requested her to do it as fast as possible. On the other side, Yu Hao was laying on his bed and finally resting. Wang commented that Yu Hao was very cunning, and he felt like they had become a true businessman, but Yu Hao didn't want to do that again. With the appearance of Holy Spirit cult, they were getting too many problems to handle above their head, and because of that, they had to move their plans ahead of schedule. Wang suggested him to get some sleep as he got tired working all day, and he would go and get their dinner when it was its time. Yu Hao was glaring at him the whole time, and it was confusing Wang. Yu Hao had the feeling that ever since he got injured, he had become the happiest person in the world. Wang responded that he was indirectly saying he was not good for him before he got the injury. Yu Hao laughed, saying that was not what he meant. He explained to him that at the time during the blind date festival, he was dazed because he considered him as a close brother, but he was still attracted, even though he was acting as a boy at that time. Wang Dong was actually Donger, who had disguised herself as a boy in the past, and she had done that again at that moment when they had gone to the princess. She mocked him and asked if he actually liked men before. He disagreed and gave an explanation that it was probably because he was staying by her side for a long time, and that was the reason he thought he liked her at that time. She responded that only ghosts would believe what he had just said. After a while, he went to Bei and told him that Princess Juju was about to tell her decision to him in the upcoming day. He also stated that with her brain and personality, she would definitely not miss that opportunity, and their sect was going to become busier after the tournament. He responded to him that Teacher Zhuan would be the busiest one, but he found the price too high for it. He clarified that their sect was in a developing period, so a little expensive amount was fine. Right after that moment, someone came into the room slamming at the door. It was Beibei's older sister who was leading the Shrek Academy team. He asked her why she was there. She had heard that he was hussed and questioned him that why was he being so reckless and wanted to see his wound. He coughed and told her not to worry too much as he was doing fine. She was shocked and posed a question if he was really okay because by looking at his condition, she thought she needed to give him a checkup. On the other side, Chior was standing behind the door and Yu Hao's wheelchair was beside her. He asked her how she was doing. She responded without looking at him that she was good. Yu Hao seemed a little upset about it. Beibei's sister noticed that he had damaged his 5 internal organs, and there was a fluctuation of soul power of unknown kind with cold and dark attribute. It made her know that he was attacked by an evil soul master. Everyone was amused that everything she had said was true. She decided to report it to the academy and was going to send him to the academy as he was seriously injured. He reminded her that she was currently from Shrek Academy, and he was not, and also he could not leave that time, so he was going to stay and try to recover as much as he could. She agreed with him and asked him to take care of himself, and went away with Chiuer. The door was closed. The scoring method for individual knockout round had changed slightly from the last one, and was now based on the remaining numbers. It meant that if a team was able to retain 7 of its members at the end of the round, they would get 7 points, and calculation was based on the remaining number of members, and also a team only needed to take 5 points to win a match. And even if a team ended up losing, they were given another chance in the next round. However, there was a crucial problem, and it was that there was limited arena area and limitless height restriction. Yu Hao noticed those problems. Normally, for most Soul Masters, limiting their height is meaningless, but if it was a Soul Master who had specialized in height, it would be completely different for them. A 4-ring Soul Master was able to attack things in the sky. Moreover, only the Sun and Moon Empire had the necessary tools for flying, so to conclude, the rules were set to favor the Sun and Moon Empire. Someone knocked on the door. Donger was still disguised as Wang and asked who was there. It was Princess Juju. Donger commented that she had come quickly than expected. They allowed her to come in. Yu Hao posed her that what was the matter that brought her to look for him. She got confused that why was he asking her that when he already knew the reason. He knew it, but he still said that if she was there because of the change of the rules in the tournament, she didn't even know that the rules had changed. He informed her that they hadn't changed much, and he had only lifted the height restriction. He wondered that it was changed because for the Soul Masters of Sun and Moon Empire to have an advantage. She was in shock by listening to the new. He also said that it was indeed unfair to ordinary Soul Masters, but not for them, so why should they care? He suggested to complain about it. He didn't think that it was going to be much useful, but at least it could put some pressure on them. She wanted to talk about that later. What she had come to say was that she had tested the soul guide he gave. He was smiling and asked how it was. She questioned him what was with his face, and if he was acting proud of it. He started acting emotional, asking what he had done wrong and if smiling was a wrong thing to do. He then decided to have a serious face from then. She had come to ask him if she placed a bulk order for that soul guide, would he be able to give them a discount? Unfortunately, he too wanted to say something to Princess regarding that. Due to the scarcity of raw materials, the Soul Guide department told them that the price had gone up by 30%. Listening that made Juju very angry and said that it had been 2 days. She questioned if he was trying to mess with her on purpose. He disagreed with her and explained that he was not lying. Grandma asked if he knew what he was doing and warned him that he had to pay if something would go wrong. He was being very sorry to her. He didn't want to be like that himself, but 70% of the metals in that continent were monopolized by the Sun and Moon Empire. He queried how a small sect like Tang could get such a large quantity of metals. There was always some or other shortage of metals, so the price went up and down unintentionally. Yu Hao started to have a headache. Juju wondered that even though they had just started negotiating, she was already under his trap. To her, it also looked like he had guessed what she wanted. She had no choice but to agree with him, but she didn't like agreeing to what she didn't want to do. She suggested her grandma to go from there. Yu Hao probed that why she was leaving suddenly. Meanwhile, someone knocked on the door and asked if Yu Hao was there. It was Uncle Mo and Wei Na on the door. They were from the Heavendu Empire and told Donger that they were there to discuss for the cooperation for the items he had given them the last time they met. She saw Juju and asked why she was there. Juju inquired if she was also there to cooperate with him. Yes responded with a yes. She asked Yu Hao if he was doing it on purpose. He replied that he didn't mean to, but looking at that, and it just seemed to be a coincidence, and he started to laugh. He started to laugh and asked everyone to believe him. He also asked everyone to sit as everyone was present there. Uncle Mo asked what happened to him. He explained that he had just met up with an unfortunate accident, and now he was only able to move one of his hand. Wei wanted to talk to Yu Hao alone, but there were so many people in the room, so she asked if she could talk to him. Everyone disagreed with her that no matter what she wanted to talk to him about, they were not going to leave her side and suggested Yu Hao that why don't he go to their room. They were also willing to drop him off when they finished talking, but Yu Hao didn't find a need of that. Juju got frustrated and said that she got there first to speak with him, and she followed the rule of first come, first serve thing. They queried that wasn't she leaving when they had dropped by, which meant her business was over with him, and it was their turn. They both asked Yu Hao what they should do, but he was very confused and pretended to not know what was going on. Juju decreed to put his silly act away and agreed to the price he had mentioned before and demanded him to keep his promise at his end, and that was to give them the top priority. She also offered to provide the metals if he could not get it through the market. Wei offered him that the Heavendu Empire would increase the price by 10% of what he had said and asked him to prioritize them. Juju was shocked by listening that and questioned her why was she doing it. Wei apologized to her and said that it was a matter of their Heavendu Empire's existence and she could not back off no matter what, even if it was her. They both were claiming that they were Yu Hao's first priority. Juju posed a question to Wei if she really wanted to fight with her. Wei replied that it was not personal, but she had no other choice. She inquired if they really needed to increase the price, but the soul guide was important to them too. Red ashes had started to come out of Grandma. Juju pleaded her not to do that. Wei also brought up Hyper Duluo, who was really surprising Grandma, and she got more angry. Wei asked Juju if they really had to do that. Juju apologized for her grandma's impulsiveness and also decided to increase the price by 10%. Yu Hao stated that they don't need to go that far to do it and declared that he was not increasing the price. His sect just hoped to help them and not to make things difficult. That was the reason he decided not to increase the price to burden them. Both of them could use soul coins and rare metals to buy their soul guides. He also decided to provide 10 divine missile cannons and milk essence to both of them and prioritized both of them. Juju was ready to sign the deal, but Wei suggested to take things slowly. Donger questioned Yu Hao if he was tired. He responded that it was much easier to face strong opponents than to negotiate. However, he had no other choice since that was a must for their sect. Donger inquired if a war was going to break out. She didn't know what to do if that happened. Yu Hao responded that a war was bound to happen sooner or later, and protecting the people around was most important thing for him. He would be grateful if his body had recovered before the breakout of the war. The next morning, there were people standing in a row and were asking each other why they had woken up so early. One of them woke up early because she wanted to see the participating teams. There were too many people standing in groups. Some people saw Yu Hao on a wheelchair and asked each other if disabled people were allowed to participate. They also added further that it looked like he was just there to fill in for numbers and started to laugh at him. There were 167 teams with around 2,000 participants, and there were around 10,000 soldiers on guard for safety. The venue was located on the outskirts of the city. It was a newly built arena. The arena stage was built with rare metals of thickness 10 meters, a diameter of 120 meters. A special barrier was set up on the arena stage so it would not be easy to win by getting the opponent off the stage, and the matches were more violent. It meant that they would not get any time to rest. Yu Hao's group members felt uncomfortable while staying in the waiting room as everyone was making fun of them. Yu Hao suggested them to ignore those people. They'll pay back to them later. He also asked them to bear with it for time being. As teams were gathering, he saw a team in which there was the scorpion tiger Du Luo, Zhang Peng. Something blocked his spiritual power as soon as it got near her. His power seemed to be blocked 1 meter around her. The one in the back was senior sister Xiaoya. They all were wearing a headgear to hide their faces, but Yu Hao could still tell that it was her from her Aurora. He wondered how he was going to face her if he had gotten matched with her. Everyone from Yu Hao's team was wearing white, including him. A guard's armor was embedded with gold, and it seemed quite good. That was a soldier from Emperor's Soulmaster Army, the true backbone of Sun and Moon Empire. There was a soul cannon that looked like a design of their war weapon. The Imperial Army was pretty good, and there were around 10 heavy weapon soul guides, and all were level 7 and above. It seemed like the main guest had finally showed up. They got to know that as they saw 32 horned horses that symbolized the Sun and Moon Empire's royal family. On one side, a girl named Juzi, who was on the wheelchair, saw those horses and said that it could not be him as she had heard that the emperor was sick. Everyone used to welcome the crown prince and the crown prince's wife. Juzi was the crown prince's wife.